Alright, so this tree, 2 feet 6 that way. And here, yeah. Probably going to be a...
Let's put it right down.
No, because that'll be.
Oh, okay.
This is the. Then you're doing the diagonal. See,
Oh, okay.
you're
So
overestimating it.
So you're avoiding the bark?
I'm not. I'm just trying to cut at an even height. I'm trying to measure an even height.
Okay.
What I really want to do is measure up here, but I'm trying to estimate what that might be.
Okay.
So it was 2 feet 6 this way, and it's about 2, 10.5 this way. So the average of that.
Average it out.
And then some taper, probably about a slightly over 2 feet diameter tree.
It's about a 24-incher, huh?
Something roughly.
Do it. What are you going to do here?
What I'm going to do is try to find a. This tree has very little rot, so it's actually, it's not a very old tree. So I like to sand it. What I typically have been doing is sanding a couple bands so I can count the rings in 2 different quadrants of the tree.
Okay.
And ideally I count the same number twice, so that tells me I'm doing an accurate count.
Okay.
This tree might not even be necessary. It looks like it's going to be fairly straightforward because the wood is in very good condition. It's very intact.
Okay.
Actually, we're a 1/4 inch apart or so, so it was growing pretty rapidly for the first 10 years.
Yeah.
And then it started to slow down. This tree got, still a young tree, but it wasn't growing very rapidly.
Is that typical?
Quite slow. No, I haven't been able to. The most typical pattern I've seen is that the first, 50 years the tree grows pretty rapidly and then it starts to slow down. But this one looks like it grew rapidly for only a few years, slowed down significantly, and when it was about 50 years old or so it was growing quite slowly. Then it seemed to speed up again for a few years in its middle life.
Yeah.
And then slowed down a little bit, and then it got very slow over here. So I'm not sure. We're wondering why these oaks at Nelson's Grove, having been never, cut down in mass, why they're relatively small trees if they've been growing for 150 years.
Different theories. Some people say it's because it was always such a dense grove. Maybe competition for water and so forth is one theory.
That could well be, because it's probably thicker here than a lot of places where we have big valley oaks today, where we see one big oak, maybe 2 big oaks, and then open field around them. So
yeah, right.
In those cases, those trees don't have any competition. Conductive cells that can conduct sugars down to the roots, so it has these large vacuoles in the wood that you can actually see as a ring. And as later in the summer, as the water starts to diminish, the availability of water, it doesn't put those tracheads down anymore. It's just this darker brown later wood, summer wood. So what we're counting is every time we see a change. So I think those lighter ones are easier to count. So that's year 1. That's first year of growth. And it looks to me like that's, you know, this is the second year.
Okay.
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 36, 87, 88, 89, 100.
No, 90. 88.
I'm sorry,
90,
thank you.
90.
Thank you. 90.
Let me mark that. Where's
90.
90?
Right here. Well,
Okay.
you can mark 100.
90? Okay.
Yeah, all right. 91, 92. Now these are very slow. Can you see that?
Yeah, it gets
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. So about 130 years old, roughly, right?
130.
About. I mean, approximate. It's very hard to count those last rings. Now, what I would do is take my iPhone and I take a close-up of that.
You'll
If
take
the
a
light's shining on, I get a really good
photograph.
resolution on
Yeah.
it.
You take it home and blow up
Take
the
it home,
photo.
I blow it up on my computer screen. I can count more accurately. I use my little, usually I have a push pins with me that I stick in so I can count between push pins and rings.
So Rolf,
So-
my first thought here is for the diameter of the tree, it could be older than the pattern we've been seeing in Woodland.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say overall slower growth. from
slower
this one,
growth. Yeah,
This one tree.
yeah.
Let's try to confirm the count we just did, which is kind of approximate. I mean, I had a real hard time seeing the last
Okay.
40 years of growth.
So we'll do it again?
I might, yeah.
Okay.
So, Jim,
Yes,
this is the bowl of this tree, right here?
I believe so.
It's the
That's a
same tree.
piece.
So
I'm not sure.
They did a wedge cut.
They did a wedge cut, yeah.
They cut it. Then they cut it clean here, so they wouldn't
Okay.
have it all rough for
Definitely.
the kids, right? So we want to measure the diameter at breast height. We can measure this. I was trying to measure that. I go,
Okay.
we got to extrapolate. Wait, here it is right here. Here's
There you go, yeah.
Right?
That's a fall from that tree, and then they pieced it up.
Yeah.
All right.
Good morning. How
Jim,
are you?
Jim Campos. Jim, tell us about your role here with Nelson's Grove.
Well, I've been on the board of trustees here since 1999. Actually, the treasurer of the board, I guess. There's 3 others that serve on the board here, and along with the president of the YMCA. And it's all about, keeping this place going for the kids. They come out and use it, and it's very natural. We don't want to come in with any bright colors or anything. We're in the process now of having all the trees thinned because they are dangerous for the children. If they play out here, we don't want a branch to fall on them. Other than that,
how do you determine whether a tree needs to be thinned or even cut down?
well, visually you can tell. The fact that we did have a drought here a couple years ago before last year's rain, we were actually very blessed to have last year's rain that we had, or we would have had to come in and put about a foot of water into the grove to make sure the trees. So from the prior drought years is when we actually we saw some of the trees starting to die off, a few of them only, and then many of the branches that have been trimmed recently.
Did you say that you actually bring water in if it gets too dry?
Yeah, we'll flood irrigate it. Kent Lang, he's on the board. He's the chairman of the board, Kent Lang, and he farms. The YMCA owns all 120 acres around the grove, and these trees were planted 3 years ago. The trees on the other side were 4 years ago. So we have all pumps out here. We have a pump in the back corner. We have a pump over here, a well, and we just would bring in irrigation pipe and flood irrigate it. But we did not need to do that at this point, so we're very blessed.
Okay. This grove goes back a long, long ways to I believe, the 1860s when the Nelsons acquired it, and they used it for a lot of social functions, picnics. Now, when did the Y acquire?
The YMCA acquired it in 1976, I believe, what it says on the minutes. And yes, there's photos down at the YMCA that show the horse-drawn water tanks coming in here in the 20s or in the teens. And they had the collar that would sit up in the tree over by the pavilion, and they'd have dances here at the Grove that would attract 3,000 to 4,000 people from the area.
Yeah.
So if you want to go see a picture of that, go down to the YMCA and ask for Kelly, and she'll show it to you.
Yeah, I read that history at the YMCA. It's pretty complete about Nelson's Grove.
Yeah, so I just got involved. I have a good time out here. We have a lot of volunteers that come out to keep this place going. We've had to do some extensive work over the years with the pavilion, with the playground, with the upkeep, with the irrigation, with the seeding of the lawn, the trimming of the trees. So it's ongoing, and we want to save this for the future generations, just like they were saved for us. So.
Terrific.
Yes,
Terrific.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So these were all installed about 10 years ago. So for the parking here, all from the oak trees here, they're lumbered in the back. And then basically at our last board meeting, we have to discuss how we're going to either get them replaced or fixed. Some of them are weaker than others. This is a solid one here, but there's hundreds of them around here. So. That's from the property here.
Who's that taken out?
You can ask
Oscar?
Oscar. They debarked it and everything, so I think this is one of our largest trunks. This is flipped over from the front down, so this is the base.
Right. Look at the rings, though. They're quite distant apart, so that this tree was fast growing.
Oh, okay.
Relative to when we just counted.
Okay.
It's not 130 years
oh,
old.
okay.
It's much
so,
less.
Oh, so they can grow faster with
They
more
can.
water.
They can. They just,
That's interesting.
That's the
we
mystery.
haven't really figured it out.
That's
what,
a mystery,
what are the
really.
factors? But I'm sure water is one.
Yeah, I like your
Now,
new beanie.
was
That's good looking.
Was that tree? That was the tree I was. Hey, thank you.
That's a little one over there.
That was the one I was telling you about. It looks like it had a rot. A
That's
major
the one,
rot
yeah.
problem.
They also cut that one there. Remember?
So there's a.
Right behind us, that was cut out. That
Yeah,
was.
I think. I had you had me come out and measure these.
So Rolf, you've determined a rough count of about 130 years on a relatively small diameter tree compared to what we'd see in Woodland, where the trees are spaced a lot wider apart. Now, what's the next step here in the process? You got your camera out. What are you gonna do?
Oh yeah, it's very hard to, to count without any aids at all. So if I take a photograph 6 inches from the tree under good light, I can look at that on my computer monitor and get a much better count sometimes if I get a good photograph. So that's what I do before I go home, and I put a few marks, randomly spaced within the rings so I can count intervals between those marks.
Okay.
Otherwise it's easy to get lost where you're counting.
So Rolf, you're gonna get another sample here and compare the growth rings to the 130-year-old tree, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
make a try.
Sanding that off so you can reveal the rings a little better, huh? Yeah.
Hand sanding's not ideal, but
Uh-huh.
I don't have power out here.
Right. So who are we talking to here, Jim?
Well, you have
Who's
that
this
explained.
gentleman?
He is the man. He has been out here for about 15 years. Oscar Christensen. Without him, he's the backbone of this place. So
Is Oscar
he volunteers
Are you
100%
a
of
volunteer,
his time.
Oscar?
Yep.
Yeah,
Tell me how you got involved in Nelson's Grove.
my niece's husband. And no, I'm no good at this. Yes.
Your niece's husband.
Yeah, he used to volunteer or work here.
Okay. And tell me, you got involved here. What have you done over the years here? What to volunteer? What's your work comprised of?
pretty much rebuilt the whole place.
Really?
Yeah, no kidding.
Starting with?
It was starting with a patio over there. We tore it all down, and except for the framework, and poured a lot of concrete around it, and whitened the driveway. It was just a real narrow driveway. Put in about 15 camping spots and dump station and all kinds of stuff.
What about all the oak trees? What's involved in maintaining the oaks out here?
Well, we have somebody come in and trim 70 of them right now. You know, they're almost done trimming them, but all of these should be trimmed too.
So you try to keep them trimmed, keep the limbs from
Well,
falling
they've never
down.
been trimmed before.
Never been trimmed, yeah. Then you take out the dangerous trees that are,
Yes,
you know, diseased, have
the dangerous ones, and you know, the one that's not worth anything, and along the edges, some of them, it's too many of them. They grow in underneath each other, so we take some of them out.
Okay.
But I usually do that.
And you've been planting some acorns to try to get new ones started in the sunny areas where they'll get plenty of sun.
Yeah, but I had them planted right here.
What were you doing out here today?
Just splitting some of the wood, but
Splitting wood?
from trees that has been trimmed.
Nice.
We got to get rid of it somehow.
Yeah.
No, don't spread that everywhere.
Pardon? Okay. Thank you, Oscar. We'll get together on the seedlings soon, okay?
Yeah, I would like to.
I'll be back in touch. Okay. This is a magnificent monarch oak, just a short distance from Nelson's Grove, where the oaks are much, much smaller. Here you have a really huge specimen as we get closer to Cache Creek.
This tree is 70, I believe it's 78 inches in diameter. I'm going to have to verify that. You want to measure this one, David?
I want to sit underneath it and just take a nap. That's what I want to do. That sun feels very good this morning.
It does. Our
Beautiful
first frost.
Beautiful day after Thanksgiving.
Yep. This is our tree that we use for our, the school district landmark signs. And it has a very asymmetrical silhouette that I think is pretty artistic.
No acorns this year.
No acorns. There's a few, and I think the critters are competing for what few there are, so it's very hard to find any to germinate.